But I think all technology should bring people together. It should provide human connections. And I think that's something that we have to really look forward to. How can we learn things in the metaverse? How can we have more shared experiences?
Hello everyone, and welcome yet to another episode of NewForum. NewForum is powered by NewCoin Foundation and is focused on fostering the expansion of decentralized social applications, also known as Social 3.0, by forming an ecosystem and a community of visionaries, creators, and investors. It provides a safe space for thinkers to inform, communicate, and share ideas in order to ensure the conscious and ethical growth of a new web, embedding the values of care, freedom, and creativity.
And as usual, we have a very special guest on today's episode, Clare Tattersall. She's an entrepreneur and educator, and also the founder of ThunderLily and Digital Fashion Week, a fashion week to support innovation and influence the future of the fashion industry. We'll talk with her about the influence of digital technologies on the fashion industry, the future of the metaverse and Web 3.0, and what the future of fashion might look like. Hey, Clare, we're super honored to have you in today's episode.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time today, Clare. And I want to ask you, how are you? And also, how did you got into fashion, first of all?
So I'm great, thank you. How did I get into fashion? So I actually started when I was 6. I taught myself to sew and I taught myself to design when I was 10. I just bought pattern making books. So I had an early start. I've worked a lot freelancing in the fashion industry. 2009, I started ThunderLily, creating a platform for independent fashion designers, and our goal was going from sketch to launch in 24 hours at zero cost. So working on a platform where designers could design, create, and sell all really in just one process. Moved into Wearable Technology and officially last year launched Digital Fashion Week NewYork to provide a platform bringing together creators and innovators and looking at how we can move the fashion industry forward more into the digital age.
So that's awesome. And I noticed that you're pretty much hosting virtual fashion shows. And I'm wondering how that has been like the experience for you as the founder and as well as the fashion designers or the digital fashion designers who are participating.
So yes, we are primarily virtual, but this February we started having some in-person events as well. And October, when we had our previous event, we had a digital fashion trail around New York City. So that was sort of in person, and we ended up with digital fashion on the runway along with real fashion as part of Fashion Week Brooklyn. So how has that been? It's good. This was really launched out of the problem with brands being able to reach consumers. It started, so we partner often with Fashion Week Brooklyn, and I'm asked a lot to curate the fashion tech nights of runway shows. And I was trying to look at a different way of approaching it rather than YouTube. So building virtual galleries, it's been very much a fast evolution of the process, trying to stay one step ahead of the game. Because my background is both in fashion and in fashion technology, I am very fortunate to have access to incredible innovators in this space. I feel it's really important to bring people together. Looking at where digital fashion is right now, it has emerged from a tool. So we want to consider looking at the tools that are available to the fashion industry constantly, because these are dictating the future of fashion and where it's going. So digital fashion is sort of the fabulous cherry on top of everything that is about the digitization of the industry. In terms of how has this been for the fashion industry and for us and for digital designers, it's going well. There are hiccups, there are challenges, but the technology is new and we have to overcome those challenges. It's kind of the exciting part of being right at the forefront of everything.
And I'm wondering, what are some of the challenges that you face, or maybe the pushback that you face?
So technical challenges with partners that we are very honored to work with, who are bringing new technologies to the table. Very often we're doing something that hasn't been done before. So while you can test and you can test and you can test, when you actually get to the point of making it public, there are always challenges and hiccups, and we've had that. I mean, we had sort of touch points of this with everything. We had it very much with the Metaverse fashion show, and the weight of fashion in the virtual world. Fashion is very fabulous. There's a lot of polygons and the files are very heavy, and getting this to work was a tremendous challenge. I think everybody's really learned a lot, and it's going to be really exciting to see how this technology evolves. We're going to look back one day and say that was just the dark ages of digital fashion.
Yeah, I love what you just said. We're going to look back at this and remember this time. I feel like we're living through such a changing times, in the fashion industry. And it's really interesting to just watch what is happening. And I'm wondering, do you think the physical and the digital gonna merge, or what do you think about the fashion model? Is it gonna merge together, or is it gonna be separately? Very interested to know what you think about that.
I think it's going to merge, and I think it's going to be separate as well. And I think if we look at the physical and the virtual worlds merging, they're going to merge in so many different ways. They're merging already. The fact that you can have a real runway and you can have a virtual runway, that is a point of merging. The fact that we are digitizing the process of design, and then we're going to make physical garments from that, they're merging. How we're having digital twins of our physical garments, how we're going to be using wardrobe organization tools for the future. Everything's merging already. And I think it's really exciting. I think innovation it's almost the Wild West at the moment in the fashion industry. Anything is possible. You've got incredible people who are bringing amazing ideas and technology to the table. And you've got these creatives as well. And I think we should just pause a moment and look at where creativity is in the fashion industry, that the most talented and able people are the independent designers. And I think it's really exciting that we can look to the future and see how larger brands are going to dip into this pool of independence and rely on their skills and their ability and their creativity. I think it's almost like a revolution. That the independents are going to be very much the people sort of holding the power to what is achieved. And I really hope that they are able to maintain sort of this high profile that they have and the potential that they have at the moment. So I think that's a really exciting way to look at this major shift in the industry.
Yeah, it's definitely a major shift, and I'm like so curious about how it's going to even affect this idea of freelancing, because Web3 is all about like ownership and self-sovereignty, and just being able, like you said, like with these independent designers and all the creativity and everything, it's just really gonna redefine all of that, because previously you graduate from college and you have to go through the internship and you might not get a job, and sometimes you're designing for these like big companies, but then you don't necessarily get the credit, and so I think a lot of these things are going to change, and we're really excited about that. And back to digital fashion, in terms of like sustainability, production, and waste, like what is your take on that? Like, how far can we push it?
I think something we have to recognize about sustainability is you never reach the end. It's a constant journey. So we're at one point on the road. Digital fashion absolutely comes under the umbrella of sustainability. It's the digitization of the fashion industry. It's not just the digital fashion that you can wear in the virtual world. There's a huge story that's around that. So yes, I think we should all be very concerned about sustainability in the future of our environment. And I think it's really exciting that fashion is a key player in this. We know that the physical fashion industry is a huge polluter, but the process as well of shipping between different continents, all of these things, even if we end up with physical fashion, it's the digital fashion part of this process that can really help with sustainability. But I think we do need to look at it that we're on a journey. We're never going to reach a goal of completely carbon free, but we have to keep moving forward with that. And the more progress we make, the better.
Like you said, fashion is a global topic, and we are facing these huge problems. And one thing that you just mentioned that just came to my mind, as well as the thought of organization, and how, you mentioned your wardrobe, and I'm just thinking how easy it would be if I would have all of my pieces like in some way, like a data form where I could say, okay, this is the piece, all the pieces I have, this is how I can combine them. And in a way that would also, in terms of like supply management, I feel like there's such an issue globally, where you don't always know where it's coming from. And even if you're starting out as a designer, like, where do you get your production? Like, are you going to Europe? Are you going to overseas? And how can you really make that super transparent and also traceable is something I think blockchain could really help with, probably.
I think the past 2 years have taught us so much about that we need less, that it's really important to digitize the process, but also the importance of transparency. I think it's become a greater issue, transparency and sustainability. And I think if we can put the process of creating fashion on the blockchain, we can look at where products come from, who made them, how that garment has traveled, where it's traveled from. So I think, yes, applying the blockchain to fashion in this way is really a very exciting part of the future, aside from having our virtual garments as well. So there are just so many different elements, and it circles back to your point before about how the virtual and the real fashion can merge at different touch points.
Yeah, exactly. I think for me, that is the most exciting thing to watch, when I see designers experimenting with both, and the possibilities that are there. And how do you think can the single designer or single designers benefit from monetizing their designs or clothes and tracking it on the blockchain? Like, what is the huge improvement for like the freelance designers of this world?
So I think any designer needs to look at their business needs. I don't think there is one solution for anybody, or there's not one solution for everybody at all. I think as a designer, as a creative, you should look at what's working for you and what can be improved. Even things that are working for you, can those things be improved as well? What are the gaps in your business plan? I think it should greatly benefit people to digitize, but the way that you digitize and what you digitize and the extent to which you digitize have to be personal choices. And I think you've got fashion designers and you've got accessory designers, and I think they're going to operate in different ways, the same way that every single brand is really going to be different. Your clientele is going to be different as well. So you're maybe going to reach them through different means, and you have to look at what works best for you and what works best for your business. I have to say with accessories that the virtual try-on is in such an amazing place at the moment. It seems impossible to me that anybody would not be using that. But, you know, again, you've got to look at the budget and what's possible for you and who your market is and how you're interacting with them. But what is exciting is that there are so many different approaches. There is something for everybody.
Yes, totally. And I think you touched a little bit about what the mission behind ThunderLily, and I'm curious to know, like, what sort of sparked the whole idea and what problem are you trying to solve with it?
So ThunderLily is wearable technology. I using it with ThunderLily, then I create wearable technology for the runway, for exhibitions, and give talks. The entire concept is about looking at possibilities at the intersection of fashion design and technology. It's about finding solutions with clothes, but also raising questions about how the fashion industry can be a better place. So raising questions about adaptive clothing. How can you make clothing that can function? You can push buttons, that maybe somebody who has a disability, how can you use clothing to help them? For example, I created a jacket with a hood that comes up and down at the touch of a button. So I was looking at somebody perhaps, you know, and it's not necessarily a solution, but it's kind of creating an idea and a conversation that can be taken further. So if somebody was in a wheelchair and it started to rain, or if it became too sunny, how could they protect themselves if they didn't have somebody who could put up an umbrella or put up a hood for them? So at a touch of a button, you have a motorized hood. So really raising questions around how to make the world a better place, which sounds like a tall order for fashion. But I think if you could change the world a little bit for one person or two people or a small group of people, then you've made the world a better place. And that's what I was really trying to achieve with ThunderLily.
That's really beautiful. I really love the concept, and I really love what you're doing with digital fashion. I think that most of the time when we think about digital fashion, we think about the fact that we don't have to do it with gravity and we can just create whatever, you know, and just go all wild with creativity and innovation. And most of the time we're focused on the aesthetic side of things versus actually solving real life problems, real life issues, and using all these like new technologies and whatnot. So I really, really love that, you know, and I think yesterday we had a guest on and he was sort of touching on this type of topic, and he said that's not for him to solve, but then he hopes that more people get into that. And so it really warms my heart that you brought that up, and this is something this is a concept you're like talking about, and you know, you're creating that awareness, and I think that's really fabulous.
Thank you. I think the fashion industry is ready for change in general. So creating wearable technology is one part of that. I think there's a lot of people who are doing amazing things through all the digitization of fashion. Again, circling back to the issue of sustainability and how we're cutting down on pollution in the fashion industry. Our last event in February, we had a sponsor, Modern Mirror, and they hosted the 3D body scans. So just to sort of give you this tangential idea of what people are doing. So they were hosting scans for models because models don't really know what's happening to the model industry. And so what they were trying to do is create, if you give the model their 3D scan and then put the model entirely in charge of their scan and their profile. So they can choose how and where it's ever going to be used. For example, they could maybe be on a real runway in New York and they could use their avatar on a virtual runway in Paris. So they're looking at this idea of empowering people and changing the fashion industry through digitizing in completely new and innovative ideas. And it's all part of the same story at the end of the day. So everyone's bringing their different experience and skills to the table. So it's just great to be a part of that.
I never even thought about the idea of models, in the concept of Web3. I think that's super amazing thought, because in the end, these models are creators and, they want to be compensated, and they are creating images, they're creating their persona and like what they represent kind of. And it's really cool what you just explained, that concept. And one thing I also really, really love what you said is about you're looking into fashion technology, and you said kind of experimenting with different things. And I was just thinking, will like shoes in the future or clothes in the future have like some sort of more technical things like screens or lightning, or what is the possibility for that? Like, can I have a shoe that maybe I can project a picture on it? Or, I mean, this is like, very, very far away, but I think we are now here to just look at all the possibilities we have and choose the right ones and the most sustainable ones, and also the most creative ones, that's it's going to push the boundaries of fashion. And it's a global industry. So I think whatever is happening in fashion, people are setting a statement. We look at what's happening in this world, and I think that's why fashion is such a beautiful communicator, I think. So, the last months we heard quite a lot about the metaverse, the concept of the metaverse. And I'm wondering, for you, how do you see the metaverse evolve? And what do you think is the metaverse of the future going to look like, if there's going to be one?
Wow, that's a huge question. How do I think it will evolve? I think it's going to evolve based on need and how it's driven. I think we have a lot of brilliant people who are innovating and creating parts of the metaverse. It's going to be really interesting to see how the public picks up on this, where people take it. The gaming industry is a huge, obviously, part of this. What are the needs of people in the gaming industry? How are we going to dive into the metaverse for training, for healthcare? What do we? It's honestly, it's the possibilities for positivity are incredible, and something I think we really need to remember. I think the concept of the metaverse might seem frightening to some people, that it's sort of this false life, it's this imaginary place. But I think all technology should bring people together. It should provide human connections. And I think that's something that we have to really look forward to. How can we learn things in the metaverse? How can we have more shared experiences? I think, for example, the wedding industry for me is such an easy way to explain this. If you look at shopping experiences, again, just referring back to fashion, which is where I can bring you the most experience, and looking at how can people shop for wedding dresses with family members when they all live spread around the world. We can do this in the metaverse. I think there's such exciting places for people to connect, to be together, and really enrich human connections and human experiences. And I think those are very, very much things that I would like to focus on.
I love what you said about the wedding industry, you know, or how is that is like a real life case, how people could use it. And I'm also thinking about websites. They are quite 2D right now, and the experience is quite limited still, you know. There are videos, but nothing really is like super interactive or like a journey. And I think brands could really use this maybe to explain a bit more of like who they are and like what is their world, you know, kind of. I think that's from like a fashion lover, I would love to see how they're gonna create these like amazing spaces, like metaverse spaces.
It's true, and it's going to be really interesting seeing how this evolves. We're talking to a holographic company for our fashion week in September, and we're talking about how they can create an experience for brands for the production process with holograms, or how people can, you know, with some simple glasses as well, interact with virtual goods and have a different experience of it before purchase. And I think we can look at how this contributes to the sustainability conversation as well, and how maybe in the future, perhaps we could move to more on-demand production and have less inventory. That if people are interacting in a really rich way with virtual goods, we might A, need less in the physical world, and B, we'll be making much better choices before we make purchases. So less is going to end up in landfill. And I think all these are really exciting changes that we can look forward to.
Yeah, totally. Because I was watching this interview, and one lady mentioned that most of the time, like especially like I would say the youngsters on the social media platforms, they tend to like buy clothes just for their maybe Instagram, or just to post for today, and then tomorrow on to the next dress, you know. And so I mean, I this is something that the metaverse can solve, right? And that leads me to my next question. How do you think how will fashion in the metaverse define identity? Because this is so much about identity, about like who we are, and fashion is like a big part of that. And so I'm curious to know your thoughts on that.
I think it's going to define identity exactly the same way as it does now. Clothes are more than clothes. Clothes are about telling a story. It's about expressing your mood and your feelings, and the potential for creating your image in the metaverse. Clothes don't have to conform to gravity when they're virtual. They can be a lot more fabulous. You'll be able to take a lot more risks and show different sides of yourself. So it's really just an expansion of what we use clothes for now. They're going to be a lot less functional when they're in the virtual world, and they're going to be purely expression and creativity.
I think so too, and we're looking forward to it. And as you're speaking, you spoke a lot about like community and people coming together, you know, with the same sort of like purpose and working together. So what do you think about of the potential of DAOs for independent designers?
I think it's amazing. I think, you know, I think there's a different kind of company for everybody. I don't necessarily think any one is better or worse. I think they're different. I think the more diversity we have in everything, the better. So, you know, any experience that allows people to perform at their best is a good thing. And I think very much that's the hope for DAOs. Yes, allowing people to be their best selves.
Yeah, I love the ideas of DAOs because it just opens up, like you said, for more diversity, also, a decentralized economy. And we had a designer on yesterday, and he's forming a DAO, and I was like, this is so nice. A couple of years ago, I couldn't really talk to my favorite brands or designers or be part of something, but now I can look for these spaces and look for DAOs, and I can contribute and be a part of it, or we can exchange ideas, we can create system together, an ecosystem together. And I think that, like you said, that opens just a world for a lot of people who weren't necessarily in fashion before, even developers working with fashion designers or like gamers. And I think, yeah, it's just like a different way of experiencing fashion and work as well.
Right. And the more collaborative experiences we have, the better.
Thank you so much, Claire, for taking the time with us today. I think this was so insightful and good to just hear from you what you think about these topics. And I'm wondering if you want to share some like last words for the audience, like maybe that want to get into fashion or Web3, like some key takeaways maybe.
Well, when I talk to fashion students, I tell them that key skills that we need for the future are staying agile, staying nimble, staying creative, constantly updating your knowledge base, and look around you and see who you can partner with. But I think most of all, we want to look at how we can really bring good to the world, how we can make our little corner of the world a better place, from the people you work with to taking care of our environment, being stewards of our environment and our world. I feel very hopeful that the fashion industry is really moving towards a better place. And I think that's something that everybody needs to take with them. And I hope they do take with them as we move forward.
I think I really love this idea of smart garments, and it still really warmed my heart when you talked about that. And I think that's one of the things that will make the world a better place. And so thank you so much again for joining us. And where can our listeners find you on your social media?
So on Instagram, we're Digital Fashion Week NYC. Twitter, DGTL Fashion Week, and on LinkedIn. And our website is digitalfashionweek.nyc.
Perfect. And we will put all of that in the links, all of the links in the description below.
By the way, when is the next Digital Fashion Week? Just so...
Yeah.
Back,
Yeah. It's September. So we're running it in parallel with New York Fashion Week from now on. We did that this February, and we're going to continue to do that.
Amazing. Well, yeah, well, I will definitely, if there's a way to tune in, I will definitely
we will.
And yeah, thank you everyone for being part of today's forum. If you also want to get more involved in our community, make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We are NewCoin and NewForum, and we also have a private Telegram group where we discuss everything that's happening within Web3 space. And yeah, thank you for tuning in so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next forum. Thank you, Claire, and thank you, Salimi. It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.